God is really sort of yanking me right out of my comfort zone lately. It's pretty crazy what he's doing. The other day, having to talk about the evils of porn and how it's affected men, and to get into like some vivid details with that was rough enough. This subject is something that I've avoided on purpose for an entire year since I've had any type of public presence through my Beast System Revealed channel that's now gone, and now since starting this one up, it's just something I've avoided because it's so controversial, right? Where do we live? It's so controversial, and now they're doing all this space stuff with Mars, and then I saw yesterday, oh look, we have a picture of Jupiter just showed up, and now we're in Jupiter, and the material they're showing us is just goofy. It's just goofy. It's like they're not even trying to look real, and the masses are just lapping it up. Space, 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 kind of setting us up for some sort of alien thing or whatever people say, all that stuff, which I don't discount because I know through the power of sonic attacks and visual attacks, something like that could definitely happen. But I used to be, man, this might end up being a long video that I might need to take breaks and make edits for once. I used to be way into astronomy when I was a kid in space. Man, it was like a passion of mine from a very young age. I remember one of the first things I wanted for my birthday or for Christmas or something, as young as I can remember, when my parents said, what do you want this year? And I said, a telescope. I want a telescope because I wanted to be able to look at the stars. And all the books I had, showed me all these awesome, cool pictures of space and these big nebula and all these things going on out there. And I was like, well, if I get a telescope, I want to see them for myself. It's kind of like I always say how I am now. The only thing I really, really trust is my own senses. And so I guess I was kind of that way back then as well. Just kind of thought of that. But so yeah, I'd see it in a book, but I'm like, no, I want to see it for myself. So I got a telescope for, I don't know, my birthday or Christmas. I never know which is which because my birthday is December 21st. And so, 4 days apart, it's kind of one big thing. And my parents were always the only ones that were good enough to separate presents, right? Because when your birthday is that close to Christmas, your aunts, your uncles, and all that, they just kind of give you one, and they say, well, this is bigger than we would have got you. This is for Christmas and your birthday, But it was always just like, whatever, It never bothered me. I never cared. I thought it was funny watching people play the games that they play for such silly reasons. It never bothered me at all. I always, my whole life, I never wanted many things, just a few things. And most of those things were things for discovery, like a telescope. And so I remember getting my telescope, and I was so excited, and I broke it out, and it was a pretty good one at the time. I mean, it was probably, 1984 or 1985. Maybe before, maybe even a few years before that. I was pretty young. Maybe I was 6 or 7. And I got it out, and I pointed it at the sky, and I read all the instructions, and it came with a manual, and it told me everything to do. And I couldn't see anything. There was nothing. It was just black. No matter where I pointed it, it was black. I'm like, okay, I can't even see a single star. Like I was so patient, and I tried, and once in a while I could see like a star, but then I would see a star, and I'm like, that doesn't look like a star. That looks like something that's underwater. It looks like there's like water going over the top of it, like ripples. It's weird, And I would find another star and zoom in on that as far as I could, and it's the same thing. It's just different colors and different patterns and stuff. But they all looked like they were underwater, and I always thought that was weird. Well, that must just be kind of the atmosphere, right, or the noise of space or whatever, because those are trillions and trillions of light years away. They tell us, whatever that means. They just make these things incomprehensible so that you can't question them. Like, they're scientists. They're so smart. They can calculate 100 trillion light years. Come on. I always, even when I was a kid, I knew that was silly. Like, he's just throwing numbers at me. But but I wanted to understand space. I wanted to understand what was out there. What was out there. I really was interested my whole life. And then I remember, okay, well, the one thing I can look at is the moon with my telescope. That's easy to zoom in on. I just zoom in on the moon and I'd just be like, number one, why am I always looking at the same exact face of the moon? Why is that? It doesn't make sense. Like if we're these big balls and spinning, and then they say, well, it's because the way the Earth spins and the rotation of the moon and the way the moon spins, and it's like this perfect timing, so it just like never changes. Come on. God. It's stupid. It's stupid. And I would look at the moon and I'd be like, man, that doesn't look like it's as far away as they're telling me. It's like right there. And it sure doesn't look like a big rock to me. But I didn't really question it that much. It's just like I thought about it. And so, yeah, I continued with astronomy. And as I started to get a little bit older, I got into like Star Trek. I wasn't into Star Wars as a younger child, but I got, like in my teen years, I got like into Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation. I never really got into the movies or anything after The Next Generation, like in the early 90s, but I was really into it. Like it was on syndication on, I don't know, like UPN or something every night. And I would always kind of fall asleep with Star Trek The Next Generation playing. And it was just, I always thought it would be really cool just to travel out in space and all that. And so then I became an adult and moved on. I've always been a star watcher. Like I said in my earlier video today, I've always been a sky watcher, always, every time I go outside. It's just kind of what I do. And, so I became an adult and kind of forgot about all that. And about 5 years ago, bear with me on this story, seriously. Just hear out what I have to say. And if we disagree on it, that's cool. And so you're going to hear a flat earth story from me, okay? And what I want to be clear about is it goes beyond that. So I have my flat earth story, and then I have my story that comes after that of the things that I've been learning from God in the last 2 months. See, I've been stuck for the last 5 years on flat earth theory. I got to a certain point with it, and I studied it hard for about 18 months. Before I became what they call a flat earther, right? Flag this video, flat earth, flat earth, flat earth, flat earth, flat earth. Put the flat earth flag on this video. There you go. You can do it now. I don't care. But so I got to a certain point with that. I studied it for like 18 months, and I'll tell you how it started. I was sitting at home working. I was working for a company out of Australia. I was working as a freelancer doing web design. And I was writing, podcasts. I was writing blog posts for them and doing marketing. I was kind of like an all-in-one kind of marketing show team for a company that sold baby products. And so I was working. And my girlfriend sends me an email or a WhatsApp or a text or something out of nowhere. And the headline, she says, can you believe there's still people in this world that think the earth is flat? And I start laughing. And then she sends me a link and it goes to an article. And so I'm like, well, what the hell? And the article was like 20 proofs the earth is flat. I don't remember who wrote it or nothing, but so I read it. And by the time I was like to number 12, I had like 8 different childhood questions that I had been pondering my whole life off and on, answered right away. And I was like, yeah, that's the answer. That makes more sense. This makes more sense. It makes way more sense. So I went from laughing about it to immediately like, hold on a second here. Wait. I've dug into every other conspiracy at that point. Like this was kind of at the tail end of everything I was learning about how the world worked. This was like the big bow on it, kind of at the time anyway, for me, because that's just kind of as far as I ended up all going until COVID started. But so there was a link. Somebody had commented on the article. Just some random reader had commented and left a link and said, if you want to go deeper, check this out. And so I clicked on that, and it was some dude. I can't remember his name anymore. But it was like an hour and a half long video. And he was just talking like a reasonable person, just like I feel like I am, and just explaining what he's been discovering and all these very obvious proofs, very obvious things. I'm not a stupid person, man. I'm not gullible. I mean, sometimes I guess I can be, but man, I don't think I fall for stuff, too often. And so by the time I got done listening to that video, I knew that I was going to be looking farther into this. And so I started at that time in late 2015 or early 2016. I don't remember. Probably, I think it was 2016. It was around the time when Trump got elected. It was like a little before that, like maybe that summer or something. And I started to dig into, the flat earth thing. And there's a lot of misinformation. Even back then, there was a ton of misinformation. Now it's all misinformation. You start trying to Google flat earth right now, good luck. You're not going to find anything real about it. It's all garbage. It's all there to misdirect you into things that are just completely insane, that aren't what people who believe the earth is flat actually believe. They're not that at all. They're just total misinformation. That's all you're going to find anymore. If you Google flat earth, if you go on YouTube and look at flat earth, but it didn't used to be that way. It used to be a mixture of stuff, and you had to sort through what was real and what was, and just like you do with everything else. You have to piece it all together and weigh it against the word, because the word does tell us what the earth is repeatedly, and it is round. Everybody always sends me the scripture about, I think it's in Isaiah or something, the round earth. Yeah, it sure is. And we'll get to that. Like, well, here's proof. It's a globe. Like, no, it says it's round. It doesn't say it's a globe. And then you look up the Hebrew, and it's clear it's round, like a disc, but it's not a disc. Don't lose me yet. Please come along this ride with me and laugh at me at the end if you want, and never listen to me again. Okay? So I started looking, and one of the first ones that really resonated with me was Eric Dubay. Now, I know Eric Dubay, there's conspiracies about him himself and all these other things, and he's a Zionist and blah, 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 blah. Like with everything else, just like with Alex Jones, he gives you truth. He gives you truth, and then he misdirects with lies. But he gives you truth. A lot of it, actually. If you can filter through all the nonsense, he drops bombs here and there that you're like, whoa, yeah, that's important, There's a lot of them out there that do that. And Eric Dubay, man, he always seemed pretty legit, pretty had a heart to do it, I thought, because he was a lot like me, and he studied it himself, and he had always noticed something wasn't right, and then he had some evidence, and he read old books. He read books from the 1800s that, flat earth books that people out there were still writing that, of course, nobody was really publishing. And so I started really paying attention to his videos and the things he had to say, and I listened to, like, all of them, even stuff he made that wasn't on flat earth. And some things he said, he had one video, I remember it was like Jesus Christ never existed, or something like that was the name of it. And I'm like, I'll listen to anything. I feel like I'm strong enough in my walk with God that I can listen to anything and or read anything, and God will give me discernment, and I'm not going to get sucked into anything weird. So I remember watching that video about how Jesus never existed, and again, there were some things he said. I was like, it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point. And then I weigh it against what I already know, and so, but the video is actually not as bad as you think it is. And the way he describes Jesus never existed is different than what you think he means. It's almost kind of like a shock title to get you to watch it. And then he kind of walks you in a different direction by the end of it. So it's interesting. But so I learned a ton from him, from his observations. And he was really the one that kind of brought the real flat earth theories back from the 1800s and kind of cut through all the garbage and, all the garbage flat earth stuff that the government puts out there just to misdirect. But then he had a huge channel. He had millions of subscribers at one point, and then they canceled him. And then he came back and canceled him back and canceled. So he kept going. And to me, that, either that's somebody that is being paid and that's why they keep going, or either that's somebody that has a major passion for what they're doing, like I do, and doesn't care if they make money or not, and just wants to get truth out there because you're driven by it. And that's what I felt like he was and is. He still makes videos. And so there was a lot of others, and I came across like the Mark Sargents of the world and these misinformation agents. And when I saw that there was a flat earth Netflix documentary like 2 years ago, and it was Mark Sargent, I was like, well, I know what that's going to be. It's the same thing. It's discrediting flat earth. They didn't talk about any flat earth theory in the whole thing at all. Nothing real. just to make it all sound stupid and psychotic. I remember ODD TV was in that documentary too, and he was the one. I learned a lot from him, and he's been quiet, man. I don't know what happened to ODD. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I mean, there's a 1% chance he'll hear this, but man, where you been? I don't get it, because you had a lot of good things to say, and I learned a lot of things from you. If anybody knows ODD, I know he moved to Florida. He was in Colorado. I remember last summer he had a lot of problems. I don't know why I'm talking about ODD right now, but something tells me I should be. I think maybe he's not in a good spot or something. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I never met him, never talked to him, but I really respect his work. He's really good work. When I used to have my, man, it's weird. When I used to have my Roku app, I had a Roku app when I was running Beast System Revealed, and it was called Truth Tube. And I had that for 6 or 7 months before I couldn't maintain it anymore. It was way too expensive. It was way too many users. I just couldn't do it. But I had a lot of ODD. I think I had 3 or 4 of his documentaries on there, man. And he has one real good one about 3 or 4 years ago about trees, about giant trees. I've always wondered about trees too. I learned so much from him. But I remember last summer he was moving from Colorado to Florida to be with his girlfriend because they had been doing a long distance thing, and he was going through Illinois or something, and fell asleep behind the wheel and had a horrible accident. I remember he made a video from the hotel after he got a little, because he was stranded there. He got a little healing done before he could continue on, and then his girlfriend came and picked him up, and then he put out a video asking for some donations to replace his vehicle, which I didn't have a problem with at all. I understood where he's coming from. Like, you have a demonetized channel, you got hundreds of thousands of subscribers, you're not making any money off of YouTube at all, and I think he did construction or something like that. He just broke as a joke, just like me, and so he needed money for a truck so he could do his construction job. So he put out a video just saying, I don't want $10,000 from one person. I want, maybe $1 from 10,000 people, and I would appreciate it so much, and I will pay you back. He said, I will pay you back, And I guess it worked, but he took all those videos down, and I was like, man, don't do that. It's a story. Tell your story. Tell your story, man. I hope ODD hears this, man. We need you. We need you. I don't know why you've been so quiet. Seriously, if somebody knows him or knows how to get a hold of him, send him this. Something important there, man. I think God is calling on you, man. That's what it is. That's what it is. See, you've been running from that. You know it all. You've been running from it. That's what it is. You don't know what to say right now, I think. I know you just put a video out maybe a week ago or something. I think God is screaming at you. I think you need to listen. There's so much, you're going to have so much more power and so much more drive if you listen. He's going to give you a lot of good things. It's crazy. I didn't think this video was going to be turning into anything like that. I just learned so much from the guy, And hey, we should do a record together too. You should listen to some of my music. We could do a record together. Now, of course, I totally lost my train of thought. Eric Dubé, ODD, yeah. But eventually, what Flat Earth, at a high level, if you haven't heard true Flat Earth theory, just think of a plate. Think of a plate or a disc, or a frisbee or whatever, and at the middle of that is the North Pole, the very center, and that's where the tree of life is, and then everything extends out from there. The land it all goes out from the center, and the continents are located in certain areas on the Flat Earth map. All you have to do is look at the UN map. The United Nations, they use the Flat Earth map. That's the Flat Earth map, broken down into 33 quadrants, right? So look at the UN logo. Maybe I'll use that as the thumbnail for this video probably. And that's the Flat Earth map. And the tree of life is in the middle, and then around the outside, two trailer park girls go around the outside. Around the outside is Antarctica. Like, Antarctica isn't a continent at the bottom of a big ball. It's land. It's a land mass that surrounds the oceans, and then they say there's like this ice wall, right? That keeps the oceans in, and that's Antarctica. And people have photographed the ice wall. It's a real thing. But we're all kept out of Antarctica. None of us can go there unless you're highly supervised And then you just kind of get on. You don't get to explore or do anything like that. And Antarctica's been hidden forever. Nobody knows what goes on there, and it's the only land on Earth that all nations agree we'll all share it. What's up with that? Because we don't do that anywhere else. We want our territory, but Antarctica, it's all hands off. All hands off. All flags are welcomed. It's crazy. So Antarctica is the perimeter, right? So anywhere from the North Pole toward Antarctica is south. No matter which direction you head, you will end up in Antarctica, and that is south, right? And so it makes more sense when you think of that, when you use a compass, that it always points north. And I always wondered, like on a globe, how does it always point north like that? Because that's pointing out into space then. It's not pointing if it's pointing at the North Pole, it would be pointing like directly through the Earth, But it never made sense. And then why doesn't the South Pole have a magnetic? I'm sure there's all these stupid scientific reasons for it. The reality is, the magnetic force of the Earth we live on, is at the North Pole, and it's a straight line. I mean, yeah, there's mountains and hills and things like that, and elevation changes, but as a whole, it's flat. In all these curved pictures of Earth you see, every time it's a fisheye lens, and it's been proven over and over again. When they go up, 10, 20, 30, 100,000 feet, and there's this big curve on the Earth, it's a fisheye lens, and all you got to do is play with the fisheye lens. You can make the Earth bend the other way, invert it. And people have done experiments where they've sent up weather balloons on their own with a camera, a wide angle, without a fisheye lens. It's flat as a pancake. There's no curve. There's no curve at all. And it's distance and perception is what we imagine as a curve. Like, and then the old argument, it's so lame. Oh, I'm standing on the beach and I watch the ship go over the horizon and it's going down the curve of the Earth. Come on. All you got to do is get binoculars or a telescope, and you can bring it right back, and you'll see the whole thing, and the whole thing is on top of the water. No matter how far, as long as you can still get it into focus, it's going to be on top of the water, and you'll see the whole thing. It's not going over a curve. Your eyes just are the distance of it. Your eyes lose perspective, and it disappears from your vision. But you pull it back in. It's no different than zooming in on a star. It's going to be impossible for me to touch on everything that I've learned about flat Earth here. I just want to talk about it as the common sense that I see it being. Another major one for me is rockets. Rockets didn't make any sense. Why on earth do you got to blast a rocket straight up into the air to go into space if you live on a ball? Because all you'd have to do is fly a jet straight instead of, if you're a pilot, and you'd have to be in a constant nosedive to not fly off into space, to stay, just at 500 miles an hour. You have to be a constant nosedive to stay even with the Earth. And just ask a pilot, are you up there nosediving the whole time? And they'll laugh at you. And then they won't have an explanation as to why. I'm convinced jet pilots, they know. Of course they know Earth is flat. The way they navigate. So I thought, rockets are ridiculous. Like, all you got to do is just have a jet technology and just fly straight. And boom, you'll be in space. And then even when you watch the rockets blast off, they don't go straight up. They just just curve, and they start going even with the Earth. And then they say, whoa, they got to get speed. They got to go around the Earth a few What the hell is that? Then why did they blast off straight up to begin with? It's so stupid. Like, how dumb are we? That we believe this stuff. We're like a bunch of children. To me, believing in the globe anymore, as they've taught us, is like a child's play. It's like kindergarten to me. I vape, so I know this is going to be a long video, so I'm just not going to worry about it. I'm going to do it when I want to. So anyway, there was all these things that are, and then another one was, this is a big one. It's too hard to explain, I guess, probably without having things I can show you, but flight patterns. South American flight patterns and things that never made sense, where like there was this woman, they were flying from point A to point B, and she had to give birth on the plane, and so they stopped. They made an emergency stop in Alaska. I wish I could remember the point A to point B, because Alaska, I remember it was like the Philippines. It was from the Philippines to Los Angeles. That's what it was. Philippines to Los Angeles. If you look at a map, you see that was a pretty direct line. and like pretty much the only land you're going to go over, once you're over the ocean is Hawaii, right? They made an emergency stop in Alaska. And if you look at it, they would have had to have gone as far out of their way to get to Alaska or farther than just to continue going to Los Angeles when the emergency supposedly happened. But you look at the flat Earth map and guess what? Alaska is right in between the two. So it made perfect sense. But then you look at South American flight patterns and they don't make any sense at all. Why can't you fly from, directly from Australia to Brazil? Why do I have to go? Why do I have to go to the northern hemisphere first and make a connection, and then go back to the southern hemisphere? It never made sense. You look at these the paths that these trips take, and you can do it just by going on a flight pattern. It might be harder now because people aren't flying as much, but on a flight pattern website where you can watch the flight patterns all throughout the world yourself as they're happening in real time. And I've done this, and these planes just didn't make any sense. Well, it's because they were on a flat Earth, and those places they were stopping were actually right in the middle. They weren't going way out of the way to go from, Australia way up to the UK as a connection, and then back down to Brazil. It would be insane, but that's what people believe, and they don't think twice about it. But like I said, you look at the flat Earth map, and bingo, it's exactly right. So I just had these things flying at me for 18 months, just absorbing and absorbing and rejecting and absorbing. And I knew what the Earth was, and then I married it to creation, to Genesis, and how Genesis describes creation. And I was like, holy cow, now it makes sense. The flat Earth, Earth separating the waters, and so what I believe is it is waters above and waters below, just like Scripture says. And the waters above are contained by something. Contained. We're in an enclosed environment. We are in an enclosed environment. And even Bill Nye, as recently as maybe 3 or 4 years ago, had an interview. It was crazy. And he admitted that. He said, we'll never leave Earth orbit. We're in an enclosed environment, and nobody paid attention. And then he goes back to talking about space after that. So we are in an enclosed environment. There is no space as they teach us. And we're not a globe. We're not a big rock. We're not flying around in a ball, at 60,000 miles or 600,000 miles an hour. And all the measurements they use are all sixes, 666, 666. When it comes to the rotation of the Earth, the axis of the Earth, the speed of the Earth that flies through space, the speed of which the entire solar system flies through space, the speed of which, the galaxy flies. They're all 66666. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just all made up nonsense. It makes them look smart. It makes them sound like they know the mysteries of the universe when it's all a story, because we're in an enclosed environment. And so if you go back and you look at how all these ancient societies looked at what the Earth was, they knew. They all knew. There's an image I posted somewhat recently on Twitter several days ago that shows 8 different versions of what the Earth actually is, and it's 7 different ancient cultures, whether it was the Mayans or the Hebrews or the Hindus or all these other cultures, and they all have a very, very similar idea of what the Earth was. And it's basically a big ball, big globe, right? Enclosed globe with a flat Earth going through the middle of it, and the tree of life in the middle of that. So you see how they always mix truth with lies. See, they've always understood in the past, in history, but our progressive society decided, okay, we're going to, so there is a ball involved, right? So we're just going to pretend the whole thing is a ball and we're on the outside of the ball. And I think this is kind of where the hollow earth theory comes from. We're not in a hollow earth. We're in a enclosed system created by Yahweh that's part of a much, much larger system. See, we're all like cogs. This is what God is teaching me. He works. He works. Nothing can work without cogs, without motion. Creation, nothing moves without having motion. Nothing gets created without cogs and churning and motion. It's how everything in the world works, and it's how what we call the universe works. And so our enclosed system, I believe what God is showing me, this, so it's a big, so what he created, and if you haven't listened to what I did when I turned Genesis 1 through 8 into sound using, and go back into my videos, I explain it, using sine waves and Hebrew gematria to recreate the sound of Scripture, right? And when I did that, it totally answered my final questions about flat Earth, because I got to that point where I'm like, okay, it's flat, and I don't know what's beyond. I know what's enclosed. I don't know, is there anything beyond it? Is enclosed? What's beyond what's enclosed? Okay, we're inside of something. What's beyond that? And that's where I got stuck. I ended there until like 2 months ago. And God started showing me who he is, who we are, and the power that Yahweh is. Yahweh's power, the Alpha and the Omega. It's so hard to explain in words, but it is this big ball of just raging energy and power and sound and creation, and just screams with glory, you know, and that's the Alpha, and then the Omega is the end point. Think of it kind of like a funnel, you know, and Yahweh is constantly creating things that are rushing down this funnel, that are creating other things, all as cogs churning and turning, and millions of things being created constantly, new things all the time. And he's the Alpha and the Omega. He is the beginning and the end. So it's all him within it. And we're in there. We're in there too. We're part of his creation. We're a key component of his creation. We're not just this tiny little thing within this Alpha and Omega creation that he is. See, the point of it is, like I said, think of it like a funnel. Think of this big, like, power, glory ball that is the beginning of everything, that created everything from it. And it shoots it down toward one point. And then everything in between is being created in churning and cogging, you know, cogs churning and turning and spinning and creating new things constantly. And so that end is always expanding. That end point is getting farther. It gets farther. And God is always growing and always growing and always growing. And he's infinite. So he's always growing. He's always growing. His creation is always growing, and we're growing within it. And so for this to expand, and I think this is where we're at right now as humanity, as his key creation in this entire universe, right? Because we are his key creation. Is that he needs us to get to a new point of understanding in him and a new point of creation within us. We need to start pounding out creation of all kinds, because the more we create, the more we're pushing that next expansion of the Alpha and the Omega of Yahweh. That next expansion so there can be more creation, you know, and the more we create, kind of the higher on the scale we go, right? I'm shaking just talking about this, because I know it's so true. Like, the power of God is such. So when I listened to Genesis 1 through 8 in sound, man, it was unbelievable. It answered all of my questions, the questions that I still had about what's beyond this enclosed ball, this enclosed system, this enclosed flat earth, water above, water below. Remember how I said I always thought when I was a kid the stars always looked like they were underwater? Well, they are. They're beyond. I think they're beyond the water above, you know. That's contained by something like a plasma field or a power field that's all around and contains all of the water, and it's just us in the middle on our flat disk Earth, in the middle of this ball, this amazing ball. And this ball is creating new things. Like, but Lucifer, when he shuts us down as humans, as humanity, we're not creating anymore, and we're not helping Yahweh expand his creation. That's what he wants to do. Yahweh's always wanting to expand his creation. And he's trying to take us to the next huge expansion point. I know it. That's why I keep saying we got to get together his people really get together and start creating everything beautiful every chance we get, creating food, creating art, creating beauty, building things, creating more of us. That's so important. It's crazy how important it is to God right now, and I never thought in a million years you would ever hear me saying anything like that my entire life, because I've never even strived to have children my entire life. So that's where I think we live. I think it's pretty amazing. And what these other cogs and what they all look like outside of it and how they work together with where we are, I'm not sure. But I know we're important. This is a very important part of Yahweh's creation. It's a very important part. It's like the centerpiece of his creation. And everything is kind of stemming from there, the beginning and the end. Man, I hope this is making some sense. And I haven't just lost my entire audience. All I know is we're not on a ball flying through the sky. And everything my senses have told me since I was a child have told me that same thing. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'll probably be too afraid to read them, to be honest with you. That's what I tend to do when I make things that I'm uncomfortable with. I just tend to try to avoid criticism. And in doing so, what I find, trying to avoid criticism, I find that I miss a lot of good stuff, a lot of good things people say, and so I apologize for that if I do miss those things. Anyway, head over to avoidthemark.com/podcast. Like I keep saying, YouTube's not going to be around much longer. It's dead. It's not getting my videos out to, it's not showing me that it's getting my videos out to anybody yet. I'm getting all these emails, so I guess somebody's out there listening. Even though it shows me 3 or 4 viewers when I run a live premiere, I think there's a lot more than that. But head over to avoidthemark.com, and all my podcasts, all of these recent podcasts, I think this is number 24, are on there, and I think there's a lot of great information you'll enjoy. So with that said, we will speak soon, and I hope you have a great evening. Peace.